Welcome everybody to our Lift Up live event. And today we're here to talk about the exciting topic of navigating career success. And I've got Georgia Harding here, who's going to be my co-host today. Hello, Georgia.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, and we've got a super exciting topic of navigating career success, which kind of we've amalgamated sort of three pillars, haven't we, Georgia, underneath this? So we've
Yeah.
got sponsorship, mentorship, and networking. And we have got two really exciting, inspirational key speakers that are going to be joining us both today, both with 20, 25 years life sciences experience, which is really exciting. But for those of you that have joined Lift Up community group in this live event for the first time, so it's completely and utterly new to you, our mission here is to connect, inspire, and champion women right from academia through to C-suite in the life sciences industry. And we started this, didn't we, Georgia, as an ambassador team of
Yeah.
individuals of, I think, August last year, so summer of last year. We did our first live broadcast in September, and I think this is the 14th now. I think it's the 14th. So we've done one every month and nearly 40,000 global views with around 28, I think, key speakers now. So thank you so much for everybody that's been a part of this journey. We're also still super excited to see how this continues to develop, this community group, because we've got some spin-offs now, haven't we, Georgia, happening within
Yes, we
Lift Up?
have. Yeah, we recently did Lift Up Connect, which was our first in-person event, which occurred at CPHI Barcelona. And
Mhm.
we're recently launching our second series of podcasts, which is Lift Up Journeys. So look out for that in the new year.
Yeah, Lift Up Journeys, that's really exciting. And actually, colleague here, Katie Barber, has been working really, really hard and having some phenomenal conversations with some inspiring leaders within the life sciences space. So that's all to come. But yeah, before we bring in our key speakers, which is exciting today, I'd like to do a little introduction into myself before passing through to Georgia. So I'm Louise Williams. I'm the Operations Director here at Fraser Dove International, the Life Sciences Talent Consultancy. And I've been in staffing for about 19 years, so 2005. Life Sciences specifically for around 10 years now, where I focused on preclinical, R&D, medical affairs, and I was a successful recruiter for a good couple of years before moving into a management role and then director, and now operations director here at Fraser Dove. So that's a little bit about me. I've also got a 3-year-old son and a 7.5-year-old daughter. So 2 lovely kids that keep me very busy outside of work. So yeah, a bit about me, and I'm going to pass this over to you now, Georgia.
No, perfect. Thank you, Louise. So hi, everyone. I'm Georgia Harding. I've been here at Fraser Dove International for just over a year now. Internally, I sit within our sciences team, and very much like Louise, have a focus on the clinical and medical positions. So real expertise ranging through from translational all the way up to medical affairs. So I've been a Lift Up ambassador since I first started here at Fraser Dove, and it's been incredible to see it grow from its sort of infancy up to where we are today. And I'm so grateful to be part of today's panel. On a more personal side, I recently completed my master's in international development with more of a focus in migration studies. And it's been really great to be able to put the sort of theory into practice and do what I can to make a difference.
Thank you, Georgia. And, I have the real privilege of working very closely with Georgia actually here in one of our UK offices. And what she's doing, engaging network, growing her connections and building relationships in this space is brilliant to see. So I'm super excited about her joining me as a co-host for these live events moving forward. So what I'd love to do as well is say hello to everybody now that is dialing in. As anybody that would have experienced being part of these events before, we love an interactive comments feed. So please say where it is that you're dialing in from, your name. We've always had such a phenomenal global reach to these events. So pop it in country, pop in whether you're working, what vertical you're working in within life sciences, and your job title and your niche sector. That's always great to see. So do that. And also, as we navigate through this live event, what we also ask, because we always encourage an interactive session towards the second half of our live broadcast with 2 key speakers, is if you've got any questions, pop in a Q at the front of your question within the comments, just so it's easier for both Georgia and I to navigate throughout the comments feed. But please keep them coming and keep saying hello. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our first key speaker, which is Susan. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Louise. Hi, Georgia. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today, Susan. If you could give the audience the honour of introduction, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. So, my name is Susan Whitehead. My pronouns are she, her. I've been in the industry for 22 years, and I started out as a medicinal chemist in the lab and then moved out into project management. And I spent quite a bit of the majority of my career in project management. I worked both in big pharma and startup companies. When I was in big pharma, I worked at J&J for almost 5 years, and then moved more into the startup ecosystem, working at Sunesis Pharmaceuticals, Bipar Sciences, Bavarian Nordic, as well as PACT Pharma, which was my most recent company before I went out on my own. At PACT, I was I held several roles throughout the tenure of about 6.5 years. I started as the senior director of program operations there, and then worked my way up to becoming president and chief operating officer as my last position, and then they asked me to join the board. Since leaving, I am now launched my own consulting company. It's called Savvy Biopharma Consulting, really focused around speaking, coaching, and consulting. And just a few of the things that I'm really passionate about, which actually led to me starting my own kind of venture here, is I'm really passionate about inclusive work environments. And I think that comes from my being a biracial woman of color and never quite feeling like I fit in, particularly early on at the beginning of my career with certain groups. So I'm very conscious of that, as well as healthcare equity. And that's also through personal connection, through a journey I've had with breast cancer, and also working in oncology for the last 12 years. And because of that, I recently joined the board of directors for an organization called BAYS, which is Bay Area Young Survivors, for women who were diagnosed at age 45 or younger with breast cancer. Well, I should say people, because we want to be inclusive. And and yeah, and then also I joined and have started being active with the Cancer Fund, which is really around impact investing, and wrote my first check recently to a women's health company. So just a last few personal things. I have a 28-year-old son. I know a lot of people get surprised, but I do have a 28-year-old son, and I also have a 2-year-old granddaughter who is my pride and joy. So
Lovely.
thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Susan. And thank you for sharing such an open introduction into yourself. Really inspiring career journey that hopefully as we move throughout this live as well, we can touch more upon as we go. So Carina, I'd love to bring Carina into this live broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carina. If you wouldn't mind giving the audience an introduction into yourself too.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and hello, everyone. Excited to be here. I hear it's a big audience, so we will have a good chat, I guess, all of us. A big conversation. It's a big group. So my name is Carina Vassilieva. I know it's a long name. I sometimes consider changing it and shortening it, but probably you need to own to your true identity, right? So I'm a global chief human resources officer for the company called Apotex. This is multinational company currently focusing on generics and biosimilars, but essentially it's much bigger portfolio. About 4,000 people globally, over 60 countries presence. Prior to it, I was a global CHRO for another pharmaceutical company called Mentorship, which is actually based out of UK. My current company is based out of Canada, and I'm Canadian. But I have over 30 years of experience in human resources, in consumer goods sector and life sciences. I am trained engineer. Actually, I started my career in engineering and operations when I was young, much younger. If you asked me whether I would end up in HR, I probably would be very surprised. But career happened, and I'm a big believer into people. People. This is what makes or breaks businesses, and I do believe this is really the power which makes true advantages to the companies. So as I said, I am a trained engineer, very passionate about STEM as a sector, and very passionate about women leadership issues. I believe that, like Susan said, I do believe that strength comes from diversity of everything, diversity of background, diversity of race, diversity of gender, age, you name it, right? So we only together and big different, we can create overall full picture which has all pieces of mosaics. Otherwise, it wouldn't be whole. So I'm very passionate about it. And I was born in Russia. I moved to Canada almost 25 years ago. Essentially was, as I said, much younger, and moved to this country with my ex-partner and the dog. And I believe we had like $6,000. So this was like adventure of no friends, no family, nobody. So, you have to be young and excitable to do that. Looking back, I think I was crazy, but
crazy.
the right thing. It was a very interesting journey, I have to say. It was not easy, but it definitely was exciting. And I was very lucky, guys, and this brings us to the topic of this discussion today. I was very lucky in my younger years when we made this move, having good mentors and good sponsors as well, and we will talk about the difference between mentorship and sponsorship later today. But I would say, starting with the mentors, I was very lucky because this really helped me building my career and navigating the environment, which at time was not familiar. So it feels at this stage of my life, it's important to give back and also share to whoever wants to listen. These experiences, and hopefully it will help a couple of people. And if so, I would be very proud of that.
Yeah, and so you should be so proud anyway, your career history and your journey, and we've had some good in-depth conversations even prior to this live event, and it's really inspiring from you both. And actually, that's another reason why, as a Lift Up team here, we wanted to bring you both in as key speakers, because actually your diversity individually, chemist, engineer, CHRO, CCO operations, actually, I think that for this topic as well, talking about mentorship, networking, sponsorship, both of you have got, I think, a lot of value to add. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? The diversity of thought and speech. So thank you so much, Carina, for that introduction and for joining us today. I want to really quickly flip through to the audience because we have had a great amount of comments already coming through. Please keep them coming where it is you're dialing from. We've got Sean here in Surrey, the UK. Happy to connect. We've got Chloe, really excited to be a part of the conversation in London. We've got Joe Brown, who's one of the co-owners of Fraser Dove International. He's really excited to listen to this event today. We've got, if anybody actually sees this pop up, unfortunately, they've got their privacy settings set to hidden, I think it is, private. So unfortunately, I can't see who it is, but happy for you to be a part of this today. We've got Katie here as well in the UK. Joining as part of our Lift Up Ambassador group. But we've also got some global views. We've got Taylor. Thanks, Taylor, for joining from San Francisco. We've got Janet Stevens as well from Chicago. Janet was one of our previous key speakers earlier this year. So good to have you back joining us. Samantha, Sam from Wiltshire, thanks for joining. I mean, I could literally go on. There is a lot. Amanda from Denver, Andrew, our Chief Commercial Officer here of Fraser Dove. Amazing guests again, which is great. So yeah, look, thank you so much for those of you that are dialing in and saying hello. And just in case you missed it, just pop in a Q at the beginning of any question that you've got for our key speakers, Carina and Susan, as we move throughout this live broadcast, so we can navigate it through the comments feed. So without further ado, I feel like we need to kind of jump straight into some good questions that we've actually had. Some of them as well have come through from our community group page. The first one kicking off really around the differentiation, I guess, between the sponsorship and the mentorship piece. So this was a really kind of big question that come out a lot. So what is sponsorship and how does it differ from mentorship? And I'm going to come to you first, Susan.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm so glad you're highlighting this question because this is so important. And I think when I think of a sponsor, it's a person who you have a relationship within the organization that you typically work in who has influence and power. And they become a champion for you to help advocate for your career progression, particularly in rooms where you're not there, where key decisions are being made. That's a sponsor. And then mentorship is really, I look at it more like kind of like an advisor. Again, it's someone that you have a relationship. They can be at your peer level, but quite often they're more senior to you, and they share their experience and their lessons learned and kind of just help be an advisor to you as you're figuring out how to navigate your career. And that's what comes top of mind when I think about the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think that's very eloquently put, Susan. And Carina, what are your thoughts? Have you got anything to add to that?
I would say Susan absolutely nailed it. I 100% agree. That's the difference between sponsor and mentor. Sponsor is someone who, like Susan said, champions or who takes active participation in someone's career development. So, and it's absolutely, again, like Susan said, essential that this individual is in a position of decision-making and power better. Position of power, because this certainly will help propelling someone's career. Mentor also super important. I like how you put it, Susan. You said it's more like an advisor. I still do believe that mentors and sponsors should be at a higher level. Again, you can have advisor as a peer at the peer level as well, but I think it would be more beneficial from learning and development perspective to pair up with someone who has more experience and knowledge and a longer career, just to share a few things. Both are essential, right? So both are essential for someone's career development. But active participation versus advising or coaching or having comfortable discussions in a safe environment, when someone actually can give you feedback, which would not hurt you, but you can grow on it based on it. That's essentially your mentor and your sponsor as well. But sponsor is a propeller behind your success.
Yeah, I like that. Spot is a propeller. I like that. That's a good phrase. And I think something that kind of came off of the back of a very similar question was, what's the best way to identify potential sponsors and mentor? So it's kind of, once the identification's there, it's kind of how do people reach out and either find them or identify them? What are your thoughts with that? We'll come back to you, Susan, with this.
Oh, okay. Before I answer this one, I just was thinking a little bit about what Carina said, and I wanted to expound a little bit around why I had mentioned peers can sometimes, and I completely agree. Typically, a mentor or a mentee is somebody who's like more senior and then more junior in their career. But I've actually found great mentors who were at the same level because their strengths were in a different area than mine. So maybe they were good at, whatever area, so I could go and get mentorship from them in that particular area. So I just wanted to highlight, sometimes, you can also get great benefit from that as well.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Sometimes potentially people will naturally be swayed to find a mentor in something that they're very familiar with, that maybe feel like they're going to understand that person's position, background, experience, decisions, whatever. So it's interesting actually that you say that, because I think you're absolutely right. I guess sometimes it's nice to look outside of that box, isn't it? And to open up your own breadth of or way of thinking, speaking to somebody that isn't usually within your realm or department or area. That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing. So from an identification perspective, what are your thoughts with that?
So I think, obviously being really intentional here. So on the sponsorship side, like recognizing who those people are within the organization that have decision-making power, but also that they need to have visibility to your work. So you can't just go to somebody and ask them to sponsor you if they don't have visibility to what you're doing and your performance level. So I think, thinking about when I look for sponsorship, I'm thinking about, okay, making sure my performance is always top notch, right? Because that is really important. And then going to them and just, letting them know what you're looking for and what you're planning, what you're trying to achieve with your career. We can't assume that people can read our minds. And I think particularly with women, I see this a lot. Like, some of us struggle with self-advocating. So
Yeah.
know that, know what you've done, know
Mm.
how you've contributed to the organization, do your best work, and then don't be shy to go and ask for somebody to support you in, achieving your career
Yeah.
aspiration.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you find through experience that people tend to find a sponsor more because they're having to go and ask than, corporates or organizations actually publicizing that they have sponsors within the business that are approachable? I mean, I was just popped
Yeah.
into my mind then. I kind of thought,
Yeah, it might be good for Carina to comment on this one because I don't think I've ever been at a company where they've announced who the sponsors are.
yeah,
Like maybe
yeah.
you've had an executive sponsor on a team that you're working on, but not,
Mm,
at least I'm missing it right now from a personal perspective of who
yeah,
I could go to
yeah,
and seek
yeah.
that out.
Yeah, no, I just thought so. Maybe come similar question then to you, Carina. And what are your thoughts with that?
No, it's a good question actually, and Louise, good question about corporate programs as well. So I would not say, and again, to Susan's point, maybe I missed it. I did not see sponsorship programs, but I definitely saw corporate mentorship programs. So,
Yeah.
so corporate mentorship programs actually pretty widespread, right? And usually focused on leadership development, on high potential development. And it's usually people at the executive level who participate in the program and asked to mentor couple of 2-3 high potentials or leaders or emerging leaders. And that usually works very well. But to the question how to identify potential sponsors and mentors, I would say that, and from my perspective, I think it all starts with us, right? So it's super important to be very much in the know what is it that we want to achieve, and we're speaking about careers here. So what is that we want to achieve in our careers? Do I want to be president, or do I want to be chief human resources officer, or do I want to be just a coach or learning development manager, or I don't know, engineer, whatever it is. It's very important to be very honest with yourself, right, and to understand what is it that I want to achieve, and that's essential first step. Because if it's just getting a sponsor or mentor just for the sake of having good discussions or helping me with something I don't really know what, it probably would not get me anywhere. So it all starts with personal accountability over own career. I would start with this. And then once this is identified, then I guess the thinking is around who can help me in this organization to accomplish my goals, right? To accomplish my professional goals. And then it could be, if there is corporate program, it's one avenue. Another one, like Susan said, it's good to identify those decision makers in the company who are aligned or very much connected with the goal I have, right? So what is my career goal and who can really influence it? And that's where we come to the sponsors. From mentorship perspective, I would also say good if this someone is close to the career stream I'm interested in. But what also is super important is to have a connection with this person, right? So if you have somebody who is great decision maker and really aligned with what you want to achieve, but you don't really click, it's not going to work, right? Because it will become a formality, and that's the downside of corporate programs sometimes, right? Because people get assigned, and sometimes it works, sometimes it does not.
Sometimes a bit more transactional almost.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to me, it's so important to click and have a good chemistry, so that, again, going back to the previous comment about being safe, being psychologically safe. We're psychologically safe only when we feel connection with the person, right? If we don't, it's not 100%, but you need to invest 100%. So that's my advice, right? So first of all, to know what is it that we want to achieve. Second, identify people who can really influence it, either actively and then becomes a sponsor, or more passively, but through the good advice and coaching and mentoring, then it becomes a mentor. Identify a few people, set up some coffee chats. All of us executives, we actually like when people reach out and say, "Hey, listen, I really want to talk. You talk to you. You're like impressed with your career. We feel, oh, it feels so good. They're impressed.
Yeah.
Right? So we like talking. We like that. And then see where you fit when you don't. Right. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think there's some great bits of advice there, Carina. For me, I think what resonated the most is almost before you're sitting down and identifying, it's actually deciding what it is that you want as an individual. I think that's so important. What your vision or what your mission is, what it is that you want to gain, because I think so often or not, I feel that potentially individuals don't do that and they go straight into these conversations just maybe feeling like it could be a therapy session or they're going to just fix a problem that you've got, and it's the long sight, isn't it? It's not the short kind of sighted perspective of these conversations. And most people I know that have had a mentor or a coach, they don't have it for a handful of weeks or for a couple of months. Like you've just said, Carina, if the chemistry is good, they're often ongoing for a very long time. So I think we've got some great comments just coming back to the audience. So Pratap, great points. Thank you very much. We've got Janet Stevens here as well saying mentorship diversity in terms of areas of expertise is very important. Couldn't agree more. Janet, we've got a great point. Vision drives decision from Andrew, 100%. Yeah, and we've still got lots of people dialing in, haven't we, Georgia, which is great. So keep them coming. Hi, Olivia. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast. But actually, rolling through from this comment, then, if we're going down a bit more of a personal route, have you specifically had a mentor, a sponsor, or a coach? And what would you say is the significant benefit that you feel you've gained from a personal, professional growth perspective from that? I'm sure there's going to be lots of different things, but if there is something that kind of specifically stands out, maybe in your mind. So come to you first, Susan, with this.
Yes,
I'm kind of flipping between the
two. D, or the answer is D, all of the above. Yes, I've had mentors, sponsors, and coaches. And I absolutely wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for having, these key people in my life. And, there's been a lot of benefits, but I think certainly what comes to top of mind is really helping me not only to build the skill set and help to build the roadmap, but really to help overcoming my limiting beliefs that I had at various stages of my career. So, that's why I think I'm so super passionate about I'm been a sponsor or mentoring other people because of that.
Yeah. No, that's very humble. And I think that sometimes, whether it's personal challenges outside of work or just challenging situations that are happening in work, sometimes that self-belief or self-doubt or whatever it is creeps in, and actually coming back to that what is it that I want to gain out of these conversations, and actually having a sounding board can completely get you out of that situation, which I think is where you're kind of coming from there as well, Carina. Sorry, Susan. But Carina, what are your thoughts with this? And I think from previous conversations, you have had a mentor and it's worked very well.
Yes, so it's another good question, and like Susan, I'm blessed having some good mentors and sponsors as well in the past. But to the question, what was the most? And there are, like you said, Louise, there are numerous benefits, right? So we grow, we develop. Like Susan said, I would not be where I am today if I did not have some good mentors along the way. What I found very helpful, and that's again going back to the point of having a good connection, we all want to improve, right? But again, feedback can be given in a different. Feedback is a gift. It's great to get the gift of feedback, but it can be given in a different ways, right? And it's so important to receive it in a way that you actually want to grow from it, rather than say, you know what, I see you last time and never again I will talk to you, right? So you need to have, while both individuals can be very well-meaning, but again, with some it works, with some it doesn't. But I was very fortunate having some mentors who would be very direct. And again, you need to know yourself, right? So I like direct people. I like direct people, you get feedback, you process it, you move on, rather than
constructive feedback. Yes.
Conversation, I get lost. I don't even know what we are talking about. So you need to find somebody doing it, right? So who works for you, and then it's working, right? Then it's working. So again, finding the right style, finding the right chemistry, but also finding the right style of what you expect becomes so important. So my biggest benefits in my life was that I was fortunate to meet those people and get some very practical, very focused feedback, which would identify both, right, strengths and opportunities, and then you learn how you capitalize on your strengths and how you develop your opportunities. So that, right? So I would say direct good feedback, or maybe indirect if it works for others better. But the one which should be focused on what is it that you're good at as well. It's so important to know what you're good at, not just areas for improvement, as well as areas for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it shouldn't always be my personal opinion anyway. It shouldn't always be a focus on the glass half full, what you need to always get better at. There is absolutely nothing wrong with sitting down and analyzing all of the good things that you're good at or your mentee's good at. I think you've got to find that balance, which ultimately, in my opinion, also drives chemistry, doesn't it? Because you just get that bond and that appreciation and level of respect as well. But thank you for sharing your comments.
Before we move on, I've been sitting on the edge of my seat because Carina said something, and I'm like, yes. So I just wanted to add, I think it's really important. So I can tell that Carina's a direct person. She's like, I want direct feedback. And I think a lot of times you'll see, particularly as you get higher in the ranks, right? You see people who are more assertive. But what I want to highlight, depending on, we have a broad audience here and wherever you're at today in your career, is seek mentorship from people with different styles. So for example, if getting direct feedback isn't your favorite thing, push yourself outside your comfort zone and look for a mentorship that maybe some is not as direct, but you pick one mentor that is more direct. And then you can balance it out. So really just looking, mentors, we come in all shapes, sizes, colors,
Yes. No, I think that's very true. And if I'm on a personal level, have had a coach, and I would say, typically speaking, I'm quite extrovert, and that individual's a little bit more maybe potentially introvert, and a different style. But actually, I really like that, because I would much rather sit down, have a constructive conversation, and look at something through a different lens. Because I think that's the only way sometimes that you are broadening your own level of knowledge and experience. Because if you're kind of always looking at it the same way, or the same way that somebody else that looks at a similar thing to you, then you're not really you're not broadening out. So I'm an absolute advocate for what you just said then, Susan. I think that's very true. And we've got some great comments coming through here now. So we've got Tasmin, interesting topics in discussion. Keep it up. We've got lots more questions coming through. Charity here, a great question. So just how in depth should discussions be professionally and personally with mentors to derive the most value from them? Is there a risk of oversharing? So in your positions, I guess, maybe looking at it from a mentor or a sponsor perspective, have you ever had or been in that situation where there has been that oversharing? Do you feel like there are boundaries that potentially have to be set early on when you're a coach or a mentor? What are your thoughts with that? And I'll come to you, Carina, first.
Sure. So it's a great question, Charity. I would say a few things I would offer. I think Susan or Louise earlier mentioned something about therapy. So mentorship and coaching, mentorship, sponsorship is not therapy, right? So again, you don't want to get to this level. But there are therapists who can help with that. But when we get to mentorship and coaching and sponsorship, it again goes back in my mind to establishing connection and like Susan said, we all come in different shapes, forms, styles, and everything. So what may feel oversharing for someone like me would not feel like oversharing for someone else, right? Or another way around. So on the search of your mentor or your sponsor, you will click and you will see your style-wise, once you start communicating, how both of you go, when both of you go to some level to detail, you would see if it works for both of you or not. So just watch, right? And just watch for body language, for what people say, how they react to what you say. Sometimes they say one thing, body language says something else.
Yeah.
You will feel it. You will feel it. Another thing I would add, as your relationship develops, this professional relationship develops, you probably both naturally would start digging in more, right? So it's a journey. It's a journey of mentorship or sponsorship. And usually start at a higher level, and then you connect and you see how it gels, right? And how it shapes it up. So again, but I can't speak for everyone, right? So maybe at some point you just watch that you don't venture into therapy territory.
It's very
it's not the question.
Yeah, well, but very, very mindful things to consider, and I think you're absolutely right. Have you got anything to add to that, Susan?
I think Carina like hit the nail on the head. You know, it's so much of it is really about chemistry. And building that relationship over time. I completely agree. It's like layers of an onion, right? Like you're going to get deeper over time. I would say if you're thinking about sharing something more personal, and it's a newer relationship, like just don't jump in all at once. Like dip your toe in and share a little bit, you know, and just see how that goes, and then you can gauge it from there.
Yeah, I think it's so much exactly chemistry, communication. I mean, I've had individuals say in the past, which I actually really appreciate. That's the whole kind of direct communication piece that Carina was mentioning. But it's kind of like, I'm not here to give you the answers. I'm here to help you figure out the answers. And I love that. So some great bits of advice there. And thank you, Charity, for sharing that. We had Daniela here as well from Brazil saying, I'm currently being mentored through the company I work for mentorship program, and I couldn't agree more with having chemistry between mentor and mentee and benefiting from having a mentor that has completely different communication style than mine. So thank you very much for sharing that, Daniela. We've also got Georgia here, really interesting topic. So thank you for keeping them coming. What I'd like to do, because time as always creeps on very fast throughout these lives, is maybe touch upon a bit of the networking piece. So what networking strategies have served you both well? And are there any myths or misconceptions do you feel that, to be aware of? So I'm going to come to Susan, I think, with this question.
Yeah, well, I'm an introvert, so my preference naturally is to network kind of more in like smaller groups, or just intentionally seeking out people to set up like the coffee chats or the Zoom meetings, etc. However, when I do have to go into a larger forum for networking, I just try to go in, like I tell myself, I don't focus so much on like I'm networking. I'm going in with a curious mindset to see who I can meet and being really focused on my purpose and why I'm there. And then it becomes for me like less intimidating and much more enjoyable.
Yeah. No, that's a great bit of advice. And when you network, out of curiosity, what's your comfort zone? Do you network within the areas that you're familiar with, or do you tend to step out and network with a broader range of life sciences professionals, or even professionals outside of the industry, but maybe be at your level?
Oh, I will absolutely. I mean, I've networked with my level and above. So, and I would say it's not always just limited to my industry. It's really more around what am I trying to, like, what's my purpose? What's my intention? What am I curious about? And, whatever forum that can help feed that curiosity for me.
Yeah, I love that. And Carina, what are your thoughts with this? And are there any myths or misconceptions do you think there are to be aware of?
I 100% agree with Susan, and that it all starts with the purpose, right? So we have goals, and whatever we do towards those goals, this is the purpose of many avenues we explore, including networking. But as I was listening and reading the question, I actually thought of a personal story to share very quickly. One of great mentors who also happened to be a boss of mine years ago, when I was in my very first VP role, I think it was like 15 years ago or something. So, but, I was a director, very hardworking director, getting through career essentially stages, and then got appointed to the VP. So, but I always was very work focused and never had issues talking to anybody, no matter how high in the organization, as long as it was work related, right? So personal stuff, let's say lunches or anything else, I would go with friends or people I kind of have, very informal connection with. So you would not even think of going for lunch with somebody who is chairman of the board or what I would be talking to them about. So this mentor of mine, so essentially gave me a bonusable goal, and it was a bonusable goal, which helped a lot. So the goal was every month I was supposed to go at least for 2 dinners or lunches with board members or C-suite level people, and I was forbidden to talk about work. So that was,
that was
great.
But I'm goal-oriented person, and I like my bonus, right? So I said,
so you went and did it.
And so here I am. I was much younger. As I said, I'm from Russia. I still speak, as you guys can hear, with a thick accent, which was even worse back then. And I'm calling this chairman of the board, who is like in his 80s, very different background, Anglo-Saxon, old gentleman, very accomplished. I looked him up. I thought, oh my God, what I'm going to talk to him about. But I essentially reached out and I said, well, I looked up your profile on LinkedIn and such a great career story. And it's my first VP role and I can learn so much from you, like generally. Would you mind to go for lunch with me? And I thought he would tell me to go, where. And this would be the end of this conversation. And surprisingly, he said, sure, let's do how is this and that. So we went. And I asked him, so how he got where he got and how his family, because I can't talk about work, how your family helped you. And he just was so happy. He told me the whole life story and about his kids and grandkids and everything else.
Nice.
And then 3 months down the road, our company was purchasing a smaller business, and he told our CEO that, by the way, Carina would be good to deal with this, right? So I guess it's a long story short, and I was working my goals, and I was supposed to bring 2 bills from lunch to show that I had it. And that was difficult until it became easy. So now, if a month goes by when I don't have 2-3 informal chats with people who at a very high level and very outside of my circle, I feel it was the lost wasted months, right? So speaking of the strategies, it was a long story to say the strategy would be, and I think Susan said that, to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, again, knowing where you want to go, establish who would be a good network for these purposes, and chances are it will be outside of your comfort zone. And then just, reach out and invite people for whatever, right? So, and sometimes they will ignore you, and that's okay. Some other people would not, and that's good, right? And with some you click, with some you would not. But it's so important also continuously grow and expand your network so that it becomes a good network when you need it, right? So you need to build network not when you need it, but in advance, so that when you need it, you have it.
That is absolutely vital important. So actually, Sian here's just popped in. How important is networking? Before you went into all of that, and I think you've literally nailed that question, on the head, because it's not always about what you might need from that individual you're reaching out to there and then. Network can often be, it's a long-term friendship, connection, relationship, whatever it is that you build with that individual, but you never know at whatever point that you might need that support or advice. And I think, and that's the beauty of it. So actually, the fact that you met that individual, had dinner with them, and then 3 months later actually he was calling upon your expertise was brilliant. We often use a language here, don't we, Georgia? Both actually on Lift Up quite a few times, some of our key speakers around network being our net worth. And I think that's, absolutely
a true testament.
It is a true testament. And even in the Lift Up community group, we've had and seen a number of people now building those relationships, which has been really, really great to see. In fact, two key speakers back in, I think, March time, they were 30 minutes down the road from each other in Chicago and then met up and had a coffee, which was lovely. We've had another live event where I think two key speakers were up talking for about an hour and a half the night before and have stayed in contact. And, that is what, networking is all about, isn't it? I've got one quick question here as well before, because I'm really appreciative of the time. But Katie just said here, what stage in your career did you first start networking? And I think that's a really interesting one, because networking is more common now, I think, than it's ever been, especially since, post-pandemic, where a lot of things is done online and on socials. Was there a particular point in your career that you just thought, no, I need to get out there and start networking?
Well, it's interesting. I would say it's never too early. And if I think back on my own career, I don't think I called it networking, but I was absolutely doing that. Like I was seeking out people, right, who were where I wanted to be, or somebody who I found, inspirational and wanted to connect with them. So I didn't call it networking, but I can think back to like doing that in college.
No, that's very true. And anything similar to say in regards to that, Carina?
Yeah, I would say very similar. We did not call it back then networking, right, Susan? But we essentially were reaching out and connecting. I mean, people relationship is as old as the world itself, right? So what gets us here would not get us there, and to get there, you need relationships. So it's like anything else in life. But yeah, so I would say it was early, but again, very early in my career, not thinking that this is not working, but essentially building relationships and expanding them.
Maybe it's more the advancement of networking. Maybe that's more of the question. Because I remember when I was like 21, I worked for a business and I went and stood in a college and did a pop-up and did a desk and, was just that was networking. And I was like early 20s then, but it's a very different, there are still formats like that, but I think the networking we refer to a little bit more now is far more, socials, bigger, larger conferences. They're slightly different, aren't they? But I don't think there is ever an age or point in your career where you need to or should start doing it. You just do it, really as soon as you're entering the workplace, to build those relationships. But yeah, we have got 47 minutes in now, so I think we're going to have to wrap up. And Georgia, there is always a question, isn't there?
Yes, definitely. And I think that runs on really nicely from obviously starting networking so early in your career. It's a question we ask all of our live guests. So Susan, Carina, what is the best bit of advice that you would give your younger self? Coming to you, Susan, first.
Oh man, I always get the hard ones first. But yeah, I would just say, for me, my young self, I would tell myself, like, you're worthy. You deserve to be where you're at. To have confidence and to speak up and not always defer to those that I felt were more senior to me when I had something to say. Like you're on that team for a reason, or you're in that, where that room for a reason, and to
deserve to be there.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think very, very open and honest. Thank you for sharing that, Susan. And Carina, similar question then. What bit of advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, I would agree. I would say to myself, I would say dream big, right? So don't be afraid to dream big and don't self-reduce, because we impose the self-reduction, so self-limitation, so self-imposed barriers. And out of it can be lack of confidence, or it can be lack of understanding, or just, I don't know what, but don't, right? So I would have told myself, just think big and think you can do it, and shoot for the stars, and hopefully this is where you will end. Do not self-reduce, because if it happens, better if it's done to you, not that you did it to yourself.
I love that. And that is a term we use a lot here, not only in Fraser Dove, but an external coach we know well, Anna Mosley, is the think big and not put limitations. I love that. So look, thank you so much. I'm aware that we have toppled over the 45 minutes, but thank you so much as well to the audience that stayed with us throughout this live broadcast. And obviously a huge thank you to Susan and Carina, some really insightful advice given as well to some of these questions. And hopefully we've got through as many of them as possible within the comments feed. And of course, a big thank you to Georgia, who's made her debut and has helped me massively as well, navigating through some of these comments. So if you're not already part of the Lift Up community page, please go and join us. The link is here. It's also going to be shared. And this video content, this live event, is going to be repurposed, and it's going to be available to rewatch on LinkedIn at any point in time. So thank you so much for everybody joining, and hopefully look forward to seeing you in a month's time. Take care. Bye-bye.